Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. Welcome to our bracket reaction show. Brandon Meisner with you, along with Chuck Bittner, Devin Albertson, Chris Ferguson, and Matt Witwicky. We're not going to reveal the bracket. You've already watched that on the NCAA.com, but we will analyze the bracket. We will react to the bracket, and we will break down each super region in each super region individually. We hope to have 4 coaches on tonight. It's going to be a heck of a night. We will complain, read your complaints, take your complaints, answer your questions at the end. So there's going to be a lot of complaining involved, and we understand that, and we will try to dissect it as best we can. So first thing, let's do. I'm going to bring up the bracket. This is the overall bracket as it looks. I know that's small. Most of you, especially if you're watching on a mobile device, aren't going to be able to see that. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and run that down. Kutztown, Valdosta State, Ferris State, and Colorado Mines are the 1 seeds in each of the super regions. In Super Region 1, they are joined by number 2 seed Shepherd, number 3 seed Notre Dame, and number 4 seed New Haven. New Haven will host Bentley, unseeded. All the teams that don't have a seed are just considered unseeded. Notre Dame will host Slippery Rock, and again, Shepherd will host Finley, and New Haven will host Bentley. In Super Region 2, the games as they look next week, number 4 is Albany State. They're going to host West Georgia. Number 2, Bowie State, hosting Lenore-Rhyne. Number 3, West Florida, hosting Newberry. In Super Region 3, number 2, Harding will host Washburn. Number 3, Northwest Missouri will host Central Washington. And number 4, Grand Valley will host Lindenwood. Super Region 4, number 2, Angelo State hosts Minnesota Duluth. Number 3, Western Colorado will host Nebraska Kearney. And Bemidji State will travel to number 4, Augustana. So initial thoughts, gentlemen. We're going to deal with it region by region, but what are your initial thoughts about the bracket?
Well, there's no controversy with the 1 seeds, guys. No controversy with the 1 seeds at all. They are all exactly the way.
There really wasn't I think for 3 of the 4 regions, there really wasn't any question about who the top seed was going to be. I think the one that was very much in question was Super Region 2. And that was because of West Florida beating Valdosta State yesterday. And now you've kind of got a collection of 1-loss teams that all kind of have an argument. And Bowie State is actually undefeated against Division 2. So there's an argument there about which way that could have gone. So that, amongst the number 1 seeds, I think that was probably the one that was the most contested or that we had the most questions about, unless you guys disagree.
No, I would agree with you. And we were all kind of looking at this thinking that some of these were foregone conclusions, of course. And the fact that Valdosta, of course, had such an outstanding strength of schedule, we had kind of contemplated that idea. And it's no slight to Bowie or anybody else, frankly. It's just all about how good a schedule they played and how well they've looked this year, quite frankly.
Right. Yeah, one thing to consider, I think, one thing to consider is that the strength of Super Region 2 and Super Region 3, there are going to be a lot of really, really good teams that might not even be seeded. And that's one thing to keep it in perspective, that it is not an even bracket in terms of, level of competition. No bracket probably is ever exactly even in level, but Super Region 2, Super Region 3 this year are especially strong. Sorry to interrupt you.
Right. And in Super Region 1, even though we tend to not think that there's a national champion that's going to come out of that bracket because it hasn't happened, the spots in that bracket were as hotly contested as I've seen for a long time. And we have a 1-loss team that didn't make it, a 9-1 team that didn't make it. And we have a couple of 9-2 teams and an 8-2 team that did not make it out of that bracket. So it was just extremely competitive. And you could have even thrown in if Frostburg State was eligible this year, which they're not. But if they were, that's a 10-1 team. So you would have even taken most likely a team that did make it out of the equation as well. So it was just a really, really competitive year to make the field in that region.
Okay, let's go ahead and start breaking it down region by region. We've talked about Super Region 2. I think that's where we want to start anyway. Again, to review, Valdosta State's the 1. Number 2 seed is Bowie State. 3, West Florida. 4, Albany State. Albany State hosts West Georgia. Bowie State hosts Lenore-Ryan, and West Florida hosts Newberry. So, Chuck, you right in Super Region 2. What are your first thoughts initially about the depth of the bracket, about the bracket in general?
Well, I think I do agree with the decision to have Valdosta State as the number 1. I know that there's arguments to be made for a couple of other teams, but I do agree that the math just supports having Valdosta State number 1. I love the first 2 matchups that you see there, West Georgia and Albany State. I think that's a really competitive game that we're going to see there. In-state rivals. I think that's going to be a really, really good game. That Albany State defense is legit. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. One of the best defenses in the country. I'm really excited to see them against West Georgia and Lenore-Ryan and Bowie State. I think we were kind of thinking that we might see a GSC team go up and play at Bowie. Some potential excitement about that. I really like this matchup. I know that there was some belief that Savannah State might get in. I broke down the numbers after the regional worksheets came out. I agree that Lenore-Ryan had the resume to make it. It was very, very close. That's the last spot in the region, LR and Savannah State. I do agree that LR was the team that should have gotten it. Record and strength of schedule were pretty much completely equal. Lenore-Ryan had an edge in wins against teams that were over 500 and wins against teams that were ranked. That was really the differentiator. But I love that matchup at Bowie State. That is a tough place to play. We've seen that. Bowie State has proven that. And I'm really excited for that matchup. Newberry at West Florida. I'm going to get crushed by my Newberry fans, but I don't like that matchup. I don't think that's a very favorable matchup for West Florida. On their best days, Newberry is a tough team to beat. Actually, even when they're not on their best days, they're still a tough team to beat. But I don't think that's a very good matchup for them. They'll certainly go down there and give it everything they have. But I don't think that's a round that they'll get through.
Chuck, like you, I also really like that Albany State West Georgia game, and I kind of hinted weeks ago at the idea of how neat it would be to see West Florida, for example, maybe go into Bowie, and to see that offense versus defense matchup, and teams who aren't crossing paths. And right now we're seeing a possibility of that in the lower half of the bracket. And I understand that there's plenty that has to play out before that time, but it's something that caught my eye right away. And I figured I'd mention it while we're here. But the Albany State West Georgia game, I think it's a great game. And you're taking a look at, one of the top defenses around in Albany State, against a West Georgia team who's real strong as well. And then the winner of that obviously gets Valdosta. So a lot of things were catching my eye the moment I saw this drop. Chris, this being your super region that you're probably most heavily involved with, what were your initial reactions?
Well, I think the number one thing that I look at from a nationwide perspective is that you have some inconsistencies in how some regions do have in-conference matchups and other regions do not. And it seems like the NCAA wanted to try to limit travel as much as they could in the first round. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that I actually crunched some numbers, and I would like to introduce to you that the matchups that we have on here on my piece of paper is less mileage than what actually happened, where you have Newberry who has to pass by Albany State to go all the way to Pensacola. It's a little more than 100. It's like 130, 140 miles more if you put the two matchups together. And what you kind of have here is West Georgia gets to go play out of conference, but in other regions, they had those in-conference matchups. And so I am a little peeved about that, because I think that, Albany State and Newberry would have also been a really good matchup. Let the GSC duke it out amongst themselves.
So you wanted to see conference matchups. You thought that was a good.
I don't. I just want them to be consistent, and you didn't see that, and we'll talk about that in some of the other super regions. But you didn't see that consistency here, and I think that that Albany State got a matchup that really isn't as favorable in this particular case. So that's really what happened. The Lenore Ryan Bowie State game, I think that's going to be a really good matchup. Lenore Ryan does have some experience playing against CIAA teams, but Bowie is the cream of the crop, and I know they'll be ready for him. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup.
All right, guys. Yeah. We are, we talked about Albany State earlier. Obviously, great defense. One of the teams that was able to actually hold Valdosta down a little bit. And we are joined now by the head coach of Albany State, Gabe Giardina. And Coach, thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on making the playoffs this year.
Well, thanks. We're excited to be in, excited to win the SIAC, and excited to represent the conference in the playoffs.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on that conference championship win. That was pretty awesome. You've been building towards this really since you got there. I think this was your third straight year in that game. Just tell us how great that felt with that group of kids to win that game, and Albany State's 16th SIAC championship game. That must have been a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, we had our hearts ripped out 2 years in a row there. Prior to COVID-19 rocking all of our worlds, and so to be so close and to not get it done definitely made it that much sweeter on Saturday. Obviously, a lot of respect for Coach Ruffin and what he's been able to do there, but to finally be able to knock those guys off and do it in a way that we wanted to do it, and be able to kind of control the game and shut them out. Yeah, I would be lying if I said it wasn't sweet.
Yeah, Coach, and I imagine that it was just as sweet because it's Miles, and you had to get past them finally after 2 tries where you weren't as successful, right?
No doubt. And like I said, Ruffin does such a good job. He's got such a high character group of guys, and great staff, and what he's been able to do there has just been amazing. And I told him before the game, I said, we need to quit meeting at midfield and go meet at like a restaurant somewhere, because I just have so much admiration for him and what he's been able to do atop the conference, and just the culture and environment he's been able to build there has been neat. But just so excited for our seniors and our juniors to finally get one and to make it pay off. And it was definitely a great ride home.
So I know you have a lot of admiration for Coach Ruffin, but they kept cutting away to him at the game, especially in the second half. And I think he had this look of, well, how in the world am I going to score against these guys? Because your defense is so good. And normally when we look at statistics, a lot of people focus on offense, but, Albany State, a shutout, had 6 shutouts in 11 games this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, how are you able to have a defense that plays so well?
Well, I think we've done just a good job of evaluating and recruiting and creating a deep team over there. We really, we try to play about 18 players really on defense, rotating that D line and rotating a lot of secondary guys, playing some nickel and dime and different packages. And the things that our co-defensive coordinators, Nick Reves and Dino Waits, have been able to create over there in their version of the dirty blue, because anybody that knows Albany State knows that Albany State's always played great on defense. And so we're just been blessed to write our own chapter and have a bunch of good players that buy in. And man, they play hard. They fly to the football, and they arrive in a bad mood. And I tell people sometimes, it looks like we got 12 out there. We're running so fast. And you can imagine that offensively, it's misery for the offense. Our defensive guys, they would fight you. They would say they got 7 shutouts because when Benedict scored against us, it was a pick 6 from our offense, so they didn't score either. Finally, I had to go on ESPN, after the game and solicit the every time we throw up a shutout, we get the guys donuts. So I put it out there on ESPN. I said, I've been dunking Krispy Kreme, the local place, anywhere. Man, I had 4 different alumni, hitting us up. Hey, we'll pay for them this time. So The defensive coaches are broke around here, but hey, at least we're getting production.
Kids are fed.
Yeah, I think it's only 6 offensive touchdowns scored against that unit. So for
It's
anybody
amazing.
that's watching that might be questioning what we're talking about, 6 offensive touchdowns. And by the way, half of those were by Valdosta State, one of the best offensive teams in the country.
No doubt.
So, Coach, tell us, though, as we get into the playoffs, you know you're going to have to score some points to win these playoff games. So tell us a little bit about your offensive philosophy and who are some of the playmakers that we're going to see and hear from in these playoff games.
Well, you know, we've it always starts with us trying to run the football and kind of create numbers matchups. We got 3 really good tight ends that we believe in, and kind of use those guys in a bunch of different situations, whether it's jumbo type packages or even throw spread formations out there at people and try to just kind of create different looks. I think we got enough speed on the perimeter. We've been a little bit banged up at receiver throughout the year. But we do like to try to throw it over people's head. As we like to say, we try to throw to get ahead and run to win. But it kind of starts up front, I think, with a pretty experienced offensive line. Mike Harvey's been a kind of the anchor there, our center. And then the guy taking the snaps, Deontay Banu, he's going to be one of the best offensive coordinators here in about 5 years. He's gonna be sitting here on your show, talking about how he, is dissecting defenses and things like that. But, Deontay's a kid that is super intelligent, loves the game, hyper competitive. I mean, you can coach him hard. He doesn't get rattled. Now, I wish I could get some more weight on him. He's only 170 pounds, but he really is, as good a football player he is, he's a better person. And he really is everything I think our culture is about. And it's been a lot of fun to coach him and see him grow just as a person, So he's really become a polished individual that is going to be highly successful.
So Coach, we had Damian Wilson, who was the head coach of Bemidji State, on a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And, as an HBCU writer, I think it's important for people to kind of understand how big of a significance a game like this is to host a playoff game. So what does this mean to you and to the rest of the conference to not just be in the playoffs, but be so highly regarded and people really paying attention to Albany State?
Well, I put it to you like this. After we won the conference championship game, I probably have 100 texts on my phone, right? And half of them are congratulations, and half of them are saying, hey, we finally going to get to host. And, we just kept saying, yeah, it looks like a great chance. We understand that the automatic qualifier rule, but we really don't want to use that rule. You know what I'm saying? We want to be, respected for what we're doing on the field. And scheduling is so difficult. That's why we've gone out and tried to play some Gulf South teams and different things like that. Because, we want to earn a national respect. And I think our league is trying hard to do that. It's just really good. There's really good coaching in this league. There's really good players. So I just, it's to answer your question, it's gigantic. It's a big deal. Our fans are elated. They're super excited. They can't wait to show everyone what the pageantry of what an HBCU football game really is and is about. And it's just the neatest environment. It's family friendly, and man, you talk about just somewhere that's going to be loud and hopefully raucous. I think come down to Albany and check us out.
Yeah, the Coliseum is a true bowl type of a stadium. I imagine it gets really loud in there when you get that place packed and the band's rocking and rolling.
Yeah, and the defense is playing good, it's a neat place, and just the stories behind that stadium getting built here, 12 years ago, the number of things that Hamp Smith had to do on a personal level to, meeting with, legislators and things like that to get the money raised. It's just a neat story there. If you dig, you don't have to dig very deep, Chuck, to find it. And it's pretty neat. It's obviously a fun place to play.
Awesome. Well, Coach, I really want to thank you for joining us tonight. And I don't want to bring the energy down too much, but I do want to mention we know your team's playing with some heavy hearts. They lost a teammate 2 weeks ago, Adonis Butler, and we have a lot of respect and admiration for your team, you coming together and coping with that loss. And we wish you all the best as they continue to work through that grief. And we're really excited to see your team play this weekend. And we thank you so much for being with us.
Well, we can't thank you guys enough. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks from the day that he passed tragically on campus, and just God called him home. I mean, it's just no other way to describe it. It's just a pure accident with a bus here on campus. And you talk about a kid that could light up a room or light up a Zoom call. It was Adonis, and he didn't luck into that. He's got 2 great parents, Miss Diana and Adrian Butler, and they just they've handled this thing with such grace, and it's really inspired our team. And we're playing for AD. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Special kid. And I was telling someone else earlier today, every once in a while I'll go back to that Morehouse game and just watch him cover those last couple of kicks that he covered. And it's not a sad thing for me. It's a joyful thing to see number 57 run down the field, and we play with them on our heart every single week now. So appreciate you guys and letting us talk a little bit about our team and what we've been able to accomplish.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
All right, too.
All right, that was Gabe Giardina, Albany State head coach. Let's bring our crew back, and let's switch regions now, guys. We're going to focus on Super Region 1. In Super Region 1, the number 1 seed is Kutztown, a team that really, proved me wrong. I've kind of doubted them a lot this year, and they lasted and achieved and are the number 1 seed. Number 2 is Shepherd. They will host Findlay, as you see. Number 3, Notre Dame will host Slippery Rock, and number 4, New Haven will host Bentley. So a rematch there, and some interesting rematch in the NE10 there, and some interesting games otherwise. What are our initial thoughts about Super Region 1?
There was a question in the chat about who got snubbed, and boy, that one-loss team that was mentioned earlier, California certainly has to feel that way, because Findlay was way outside and made a really hard run at the very end of the season, and I suspect that they got earned access, and earned access kicks out the lowest seeded team, which was a 7 seed, and so I suspect that California had the resume, but that earned access rule to get Findlay in kicked in, and so I know that hurts, but again, that's why scheduling matters so much, because I think the rub on California was the strength of schedule wasn't as strong as some of the other folks, including Slippery Rock, who had the head-to-head and jumped and stayed in the playoff. It stayed in a seed, so higher seed than 7.
Yeah, I really do feel for California. It's not that often that a one-loss team doesn't make it. It has happened, but I really do feel for them. And, I think what ultimately did them in was the way the PSAC does the scheduling, you play your entire divisional schedule, and then you get 3 crossover games. Right. And they drew 3 of the lower performing teams in the East Division that just really dragged down the strength of schedule. And they went out of conference and scheduled Fairmont State, which is normally a team you could depend on to have a winning record. Wasn't really the case for them this year. So there wasn't a whole lot more that California could have done about the schedule. It's really predetermined for them. They really only get the 1 game that they can schedule out of conference. So there's really nothing more that they could have done about that. And I agree with you, Chris. I think Findlay's in by the earned access rule as a 3-loss team. The resume is not that bad. I think that Findlay could be a little bit. I mean, they're going to be underestimated. Nobody's going to give them a chance. They're going to go to Shepherd as a huge underdog. 2 of their losses are to playoff teams, Ferris State and Lindenwood. So they might have a chance to do something. But certainly I think that's what fans really should look at. It ultimately came down to Slippery Rock or California for that last spot. And in that position, I think, the resumes are fairly close, and they went with a head-to-head result, which I think is the right thing to do. But I think, one of the things that should be talked about is Kutztown up in that number 1 seed. We had no idea what they were going to look at. They were ranked coming into the season, and we talked very openly about, they're ranked, but we just don't really know a whole lot about what they're going to have. Even their coach, Jim Clements, was very open about, I don't know a whole lot about what I have coming into the season, because they just had so much turnover from 2019. So the fact that they are 10-1 PSAC champions and number 1 in the region is a huge accomplishment for them.
I think Chuck. I'm sorry, Chris.
Now, I was going to say, I think the other issue I had with this bracket, this region, is the in-conference matchups. And so you do have New Haven and Bentley playing each other in a rematch. Early on, we thought that, the committees and the NCAA was going to work really hard to avoid in-conference matchups to the extent possible, but they're kind of tucked away in the Northeast, and you don't really have a lot of crossover in terms of conferences. So, they kind of got stuck having to be together again and play each other again. And that's, again, kind of what I was referring to about Super Region 2. Well, Super Region 1, you have in-conference matchups in the first round, which I don't think it's right.
Yeah, and I would agree with you that was avoidable here.
Yeah, that was my next question for you guys was, Chuck, the lay of the land probably better than anyone in regards to this. Was that avoidable in this case, where because of the fact that we know the top 4 had to host, right? So we got Kutztown, we got Shepherd, Notre Dame, and New Haven. Could we have had one of those other guys make the trip to New Haven to go ahead and get rid of that situation?
It probably could have been done. Slippery Rock to the New England states is busable. Chris has the map there, so he could probably do a real quick check on us and get us the exact mileage, but that's a busable distance.
It is.
Chris, we're really counting on that map to come in handy this time of year.
Well, I used it before we got on the show, and there were some things that probably could have happened, could have reworked it a little bit, but Bentley could have went even to like Bowie State and switched regions. You could have had so Slippery Rock and Notre Dame are actually pretty close. But even if you had did a round robin and moved Lenore-Rhine on the road, go up to Notre Dame and move Slippery Rock over to New Haven and take Bentley and come down to Bowie State in a 3-way trade, the mileage would have increased. But I mean, hey, apparently the NCAA didn't care about that when they did Super Region 2. So, this would have been a good example of making things a little bit more interesting for everybody and actually letting us see some out of conference games. So it's doable. All of it was under 600 miles, but
yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I just took a quick kind of visual snapshot of where we're at in the country, and I was thinking everybody should be within 600 there, so it seems like it's theoretically avoidable. Now, of course, they're not terribly concerned, the NCAA isn't, if you are 50 miles from your opponent or if you're 550. As long as you're a bus trip, you're a bus trip, or as long as you're a flight, you're a flight. So, yeah, I would definitely agree across the board that if this was avoidable, they definitely should have done something about it. Now, as we take a look at the last part of that, as I look at the bracket there, I go ahead and I see, of course, Findlay had to be in via earned access, had to be, just because of the record and everything else. But, when you take a look at Cal, I mean, Cal finishes, for us stat nerds, they finish up at 474 for their SOS, and you've got Slippery Rock at about a 488. Chuck and I discussed earlier that you could have definitely made a case that Cal was just, statistically flat out better since they only had 1 loss versus 2. It seemed very, very clear that they wanted to go with the fact that Slippery Rock had just won 2 weeks ago. And, I really don't have a problem with that either, because they proved it on the field.
Right. Yeah, and Eekblau, I want to mention this in the comments. He said that the potential second-round flights force the current matchups to where they're in, kind of deal. That's what he was looking at. They're looking at the first 2 rounds as well. So it's more than just the first-round matchup. They're looking for the potential flights for the second round as well as a secondary kind of thing to deal with it, to make sure everything's under 600 miles for potential expenses.
See, that's my other thing, though, is potential matchups. You know what I mean? We know what we've got in the first round. So,
right.
I mean,
that's probably what Inc. does best, is actually picks out what could be potential He's really good at that matrix. So, but guys, let's go ahead and we focused a little bit on Super Region 1, a team that really has become a perennial playoff contender and participant is Notre Dame College. And joining us now is head coach Mickey Mennel from Notre Dame College. And Coach, we'd like to thank you for being on the show today.
I appreciate you all having us. Obviously, this is a great opportunity to, get us some public recognition.
Hey, Coach, thanks so much. Welcome back to the playoffs. We're excited for you guys. Before we talk about this year's team, I'd like to just talk a little bit about your program and give you a chance to talk up Notre Dame football. I know you've been there since 2009, which is really the beginning, head coach since 2019. Just talk a little bit about the pride that you have and how far this come in such a short.
Oh, man, it seems like yesterday I actually came here as a grad assistant, but born and raised in Cleveland, so this is obviously very prideful for me to obviously do it in my hometown. Obviously went through some transitions with some head coaches, obviously been around that. A lot of great people have come and gone here, coaching-wise and player-wise, but obviously went from Adam Howard, who started the program in the foundation, and then obviously got into Bill Reichel, and then obviously Mike Jacobs, who obviously put the program on the map, and then obviously right now we're obviously continue that transition.
Awesome. So you just wrapped up your 4th straight Mountain East Conference Championship, if we include the spring season. Never been done before. Now, we know the MEC is fairly young, but that's never been done before, so that's pretty awesome. When you start talking about goals for the season, when you're way back in summer camp in August, where does winning the conference championship slot into the priorities that you set for the team?
For this year, it was 3rd. We have a standard that we want to improve each and every day. And then obviously we wanted to win the state and beat Ashland, and then obviously win the Mountain East Conference. So just taking that journey day by day. Obviously it was 3rd in order of obviously what we want to accomplish here. But obviously our guys have done a tremendous job reaching those goals.
So Coach, you probably heard, I don't know if you heard a squabbling about Super Region 1 and how tight it was to the fact that, a one-loss team didn't even get into the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. And certainly you fell into that category of one loss that lost to Charleston. But, because of that margin of error being so tight, every game I imagine must feel like a playoff game. And how have you translated that to, keeping the guys really motivated?
Ever since the loss to Charleston, we kind of came together and said, each week is a playoff game. So we've obviously been in that mode for quite some time now. When you lose a game in Division II, it's very hard to obviously make the playoffs. But we're fortunate to obviously come along each and every game and do what we needed to obviously get that win.
Yeah, and as a CIAA writer, I became very, very interested in watching Notre Dame this spring when you guys took in Tobias Taylor, and we had the pleasure of watching him for quite some time at Virginia Union. Before that, you had Jaleel McLaughlin, and so you lost both of those guys, and losing 2 talents like that certainly makes you have to revise your offensive strategy a little bit, I would think. So take us a little bit into, you got Chris Brim, you've got an outstanding wide receiver in Conliffe, and so take us a little bit into your offensive philosophy when you lost those 2 guys.
Well, it's next guy up in our program. Obviously, it's very hard to lose Jaleel McLaughlin, who was a Harlan Hill finalist for his 2 years here, and then obviously Tobias Taylor ran for about 200 yards a game last year. Very blessed to have those 2. But we have very good backs here in Tyrus Dickerson, who came home from EKU. He's right down the road from Akron. A freshman that's done a really good job in Idris Lawrence. And then obviously Jalen Boyd, Rob Singletary have obviously done their due diligence to help us maintain our ground game. Other than that, you rely heavily on your senior leadership, which what makes us go is the 5 guys up front. We've had them for over 200 combined starts, and you can't replace experience, especially how long we've gone into the playoffs runs. And then obviously having Chris Brim, a 4-year starter you rely heavy on him to get us in good plays and out of good plays. So.
Hey, Coach, on the defensive side of the ball, you have a lot of quarterbacks on that defense, too. I remember thinking back to when we did our top 25 preview show, and we thought, you know what, this might be one of the best-looking linebacker rooms in all of Division II. Tell us about those guys and how important they are to your success.
Yeah, Nate Moore, Guam Lee, and Dylan Spaeth have played a lot of football for us. They get us lined up. They get us in good calls, and then once that ball snapped, man, they rally to it and present a lot of issues, both in the run game and the pass game. Coach Chestnut and the defensive staff have done a tremendous job of creating takeaways. I think that's the biggest difference since I've been here is how many takeaways we've caused this year. Correlates to what we do on offense, play fast. So I really enjoy watching those guys each and every Saturday go out there and run around and compete.
All right. Well, you got your first game coming up this week in the playoffs for 2021. This is certainly not strange territory for Notre Dame football. Have you had a chance to start breaking down film and looking at your opponent yet?
Yeah, very familiar with Slippery Rock. Coach Lutz does a fantastic job over there. We know we're going to have our hands full, but we're excited that we're at home again, just like in 2018. And then obviously we'll prepare for them, and it'll be a great game in South Euclid.
You bet. We're looking forward to it. Coach, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We loved having you on and loved hearing more about Notre Dame football.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks for all you guys do for D2.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. All right, Mickey Meal, the head coach of Notre Dame College. So let's bring our crew back on. All right, guys,
I'm just glad we had the real Notre Dame football here on the show, so I enjoyed that.
The winningest Notre Dame in college football right now.
That's fair. They actually win.
Very good. So let's go ahead and move to Super Region 4, guys. The obvious region that Matt will be an expert in. Let's pull up that bracket and look at that. So Colorado Mines is the number 1 seed. They're going to get the bye. Number 2 is Angelo State. They will host Minnesota Duluth. Very interesting game to me. If you've been watching the show, you know that I've been complaining about, seeing the same old over and over. Well, that's extremely interesting. Number 3, Western Colorado will host Nebraska Kearney. Another interesting game to me. It's former RMAC foes facing each other. Nonetheless, it hasn't happened for a while, so I find that to be very interesting. And one game that I think Matt will, say not quite as interesting, Bemidji State playing Augustana again. But in any case, 4 or 2 interesting matchups and one that we're used to by now.
Yeah, in taking a look, Brandon, I'm going to kind of start and probably go bottom to top within that display. The Western Colorado and Kearney, there was kind of something that happened a little bit overnight where, we took a look and I looked at some of the numbers and I was kind of speculating, and Inkblot and I chatted a little bit, and it became apparent that there was a real chance that Western Colorado could go from a team that was actually going to be traveling somewhere and instead be hosting. And once that happens, that kind of changes the whole equation, not only here, but also potentially has some changes that could reach into neighboring super regions because you can obviously have teams moving back and forth. So we kind of went from thinking that Nebraska Kearney was probably going to Augustana, and now we've got Nebraska Kearney, traveling to Western Colorado. Which is a pretty interesting matchup when you look at the fact that Nebraska Kearney, run some option, and Western Colorado is a very good defensive team. Play on a grass field. It's going to be an interesting matchup without a doubt. And then, as you just stated, brand new matchup here with Minnesota Duluth winning their last 2 big games. Frankly, with their third string quarterback playing outstanding football and good defense. And now they're going to be going down to Angelo State, who's been on a run of late themselves. Some could say maybe they're playing as good or better than anybody in this super region. And then, of course, kind of the one that I am not thrilled with, frankly. I can tell you that the coaches aren't either. And they wanted to see some fresh blood. The Northern Sun basically plays in a kind of a silo schedule where not everyone plays each other, but you don't play anybody outside of it. And then you make the playoffs and you get to play some teams from your conference, which is really awesome. So that's kind of my biggest beef with this. And I thought that they could have, found a way to have this be avoidable with Minnesota Duluth going down to Northwest Missouri State and some other things like that. But Western Colorado getting the 3 spot, and they frankly should, because of the fact that their strength of schedule combined, little bump that they got from playing Pueblo, along with the fact that Augustana and Bemidji both played under 500 teams, that got Western Colorado to where they could be on that 3 line. So that's kind of what's put this in the way it has, where you have the Northern Sun playing themselves. But at the end of the day, you do have 3 Northern Sun teams in here. You've got some good RMAC representation, only 1 team from the Lone Star. And then you've got, of course, Kearney coming in. And Kearney makes it a little bit more interesting since they're not normally playing teams in Super Region 4.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to address a question in the comments real quick. Byron Ramos, who does our GLVC, he asked what the weather's going to be like in Western Colorado for that game, because it could change things. It's going to be sunny and 51, so not too bad for this time of year for somewhere that could get really cold. So, and looks like Inkblot says the first ever meeting between Angelo and Duluth. So I know that makes Brandon very happy to see something like that. So
that was good. It was good for Brian to take the time to write in what's the weather going to be like instead of looking it up himself. That's great.
Yeah. So Matt, I have a little bit of a different take on the Bemidji and Augustana game, and I realize why it doesn't excite you as much, and why the coaches don't feel it's a great.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it then, Chuck. But
as you know what, I'm just going to ignore you and
this
roll.
This is like
with
Harding
anyway.
in Northwest Part 2. But
Matt, I'm trying to create a segue for you, so pay attention. So I actually really like this matchup as someone who's not immersed in that conference. But because the NSIC has been so wide open, I've been watching some teams that I haven't seen a whole lot of football of in the last couple of years. So I've been watching a little bit of Bemidji State. I watched their game against UMary this morning. I've been watching Augustana because they've been playing so well over the last couple of weeks. So I think outside of I get why you guys don't get really excited about it. But for me, as someone who hasn't been just watching so much of that conference, I'm really excited to see that matchup. And I think it's going to be a pretty exciting game. And, whether you play this week or next week or 2 weeks down the road, at some point you have to beat the best teams in the bracket to advance. So I think this is going to be a fun matchup.
Well, there's one thing for sure, Chuck, is that Bemidji has been playing fantastic since their first matchup. So I think that it's not one of those where we don't think it's going to be a real good game, because I do.
Right.
It's just one of those things where you would have liked to have seen it be avoided.
I just
you know
want
what?
to mention,
Go ahead,
I
Chris.
just want to mention, let's talk a little bit about geography and why we got this matchup to begin with, because on the map behind me, you'll see that San Angelo is a virtual outlier outside of the Lone Star geography. So the closest team when I looked it up was Washburn, so in another region. So because of that, you're going to have to fly somebody in. And I think that, again, it goes back to we could have had some more interesting matchups if the committee was consistent about, okay, do you play people that you've already played before and had Central Washington and Angelo play again as the 2 outpost teams, really nationwide. So, that's playing into why I think we're having, again, these in-conference matchups, and we're not being consistent even within the region. So there was an in-conference matchup regardless. So,
well, clearly the criteria needs to be changed to simply pacify my enjoyment. Whatever I want and think is fun, that's what it needs to be changed to. Let's go ahead and talk about Bemidji State, because as you said, they will be playing Augustana this weekend. Joining us is the head coach of Bemidji State, Brent Bolte. And Coach, we'd really like to thank you for being here with us tonight. Congratulations on making the playoffs.
I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate you guys bringing me in, and it was a big win for BSU, and we've been the bridesmaid a few times. Nice to be down the door and finally find a way to get in.
Yeah, Coach, taking a look at it, you guys have, you've been at the helm, with this thing since 2016, running the Beavers. And when I take a look at how close that you guys have been to making the playoffs different times before, and then this year, you guys clinched your first ever D2, playoff berth. Let me ask, what were your thoughts, at the end of the football game yesterday as the last seconds, tick off? What are you thinking after, kind of everything you guys have been through during that window?
It just goes back. I'm a big believer in standing on the shoulders of the people that were here before you. So, it's more than just the current team and obviously the coaches and everybody here. It goes back a long time. It's been a work in progress to get to this point here at VSU, and couldn't keep up with all the texts and messages and from everybody else. So it was fantastic. Obviously proud of the team that we have, but just proud here, man. I've been here for 21 years and just proud for everybody to have this, have this happen for our program.
Yeah. Let me ask, you guys have had an interesting year. You guys start off, you beat Sioux Falls, you beat Wayne State. Then you have a tough second half of football against Mankato. You drop that game. Pretty forgettable game against Augustana. And then from there, you just go ahead and win 7 straight, including beating, your rival UMD for the first time in a long time. Give us a little bit of kind of understanding of how things felt on your side with the ups and downs from the beginning of the year towards the back half.
Yeah, obviously we had a tough schedule to begin the year, going to Sioux Falls. Wayne ended up being a surprise team, I would say. Just did a really nice job down there. They were regionally ranked when they came out initially, and then going to a perennial powerhouse in Mankato or Minnesota State, and then certainly Augie playing really good football. So yeah, at that point of the year, it could have went one or two ways. I mean, it was probably my worst defeat as the head coach that I've been here. And the kids responded. They had a closed door meeting and they had a little come to, together time and figure out what they needed to get accomplished. And from there, it's just, we were preaching the 1-0 each week and just, believe in the process, and the guys, found a way, and we overcame we had some injuries to certain spots where the kids had to gel a little bit. And yeah, it was a little bit of a work in progress from that point, but they've really done a nice job since.
What would you say is the biggest difference between this squad and ones that you've had in the recent past? What is this squad doing better than those squads did?
I'd say, we're a little driven by our offense. I'd say they're a little bit stronger here than maybe, in the past. But Brandon Alt leading the crew has done a tremendous job for us, coming through a lot of adversity himself, coming off a couple of years of injury, and he's got some playmakers. You got Brent Bolte, Malik Williams, Dell Duncan Busby, a good group of running backs. So I think they take some pressure off when they can go out and score a lot of points. So I think that was a big belief, and we've won a lot of close games over the last 3 or 4 years too. And when you win close games, even when you fall behind or you get in a tough environment on the road, those kids they have a tremendous amount of grit and grind in them, and they just find a way to continue to fight back and win.
Yeah, and Coach, kind of like Duluth, you guys, Bemidji's a really big hockey school. They've been able to put their football program on the map. How does making the playoffs maybe set things up for Bemidji to do the same thing, maybe going forward?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at the geographics. It's Hockey USA up here, right? And that's okay. We enjoy it, and you have to. It looked like a skating rink on Saturday if you guys saw any of those highlights. So maybe that helped us. But I tell you what, you got to embrace where you're at, right? We're a blue-collar community. We are a hockey town. And you got to embrace it. Tommy Sartori is a great hockey coach, and I've learned a lot from him, and you apply it back to your program. But that's awesome, and it does. I think for us, put us on the map, and there's a lot of proud supporters and a lot of Beaver alumni that are excited about where the program's going and where we have been. I mean, we've won a lot of games. It's just now getting the big one and winning the conference championship and getting the postseason.
Coach, you mentioned Brandon Alt earlier. He's to those who haven't been paying close attention to the Northern Sun, he's kind of burst onto the scene nationally, averaging over 330 yards a game passing. He's got 43 scores. Obviously he's been through some setbacks over the past handful of years. That he's not a brand new player in your program. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of setbacks he's had before this point?
Yeah, Brandon unfortunately tore his ACL. I believe it was in the second game of his redshirt freshman year, battled all the way back, and then retore the exact same knee the first game of his I guess would be his third year. So he might be one of the oldest sophomores in the country playing right now. That's for sure. But the kid battled back, and there's never been an easy recovery for him. And he just found a way to continue to do it. He actually, unique young man. He's a fiery, competitive kid, but just all the adversity, he handled it in stride, did a great job. And I think he's kind of the pulse of our team, the pulse of our offense for sure.
Let me ask, all the coaches, obviously, after you guys wrap up your last game, you're going ahead and you're trying to figure out a little bit more about this regional rankings thing and kind of how that's going to play out and everything else. What kind of reaction did you guys have in the room when you guys are watching it and you see your opponent and everything else?
I think first off, for us just to make it was good enough for us. We were kind of going with the mindset of it was kind of a 50-50 coin flip if we would be at home on the road playing against NSIC team, which obviously you guys alluded to. It'd be nice to play out of the region or out of our own conference. But, for us, we didn't play very well. So I kind of, it doesn't bother me. I'd love to have another opportunity at teams that beat me. The competitor in me is like, yeah, we want to go down and play a better game and have a chance to win. But yeah, that was a pretty jubilant scenario. We were all doing our normal Sunday and jumped in there for a few minutes to watch the selection show, and just proud of the kids, proud of the organization. The kids, put a lot of time. Add in COVID, you just can be happy for the guys.
Yeah, and then for me, you got 3 of the last 5 games you guys have had decided by a touchdown or less. There's been a couple nail biters there for you guys. How have you been able to kind of install that winning culture? I know it's kind of a tough thing to install. To win those close games can be the big difference between a good season and a conference championship type season. How have you been able to install that winning culture?
If I knew that, I'd bottle it up and sell it to everybody. I don't think it's as much as the coaches. At times is the players. If adversity is kind of the deal that kind of sets you apart in life. And I think if you can deal with obstacles within, training or a game, and relate it back to life, I think that goes a long way. And these kids have had so many adverse situations over the last couple of years, and, getting down by a couple scores or playing in a, snow globe last weekend. I think the kids are just like, whatever, we'll just roll with the punches and go. So that's kind of been their mantra. Nothing really affects that group, and can be more proud of having a chance to lead them.
Coach, let me ask just one last question I have for you. Taking a look, obviously, you guys have had a chance to now revisit some of what happened in that Augustana game. Not something you were probably looking to do, but when you have to play a team a second time, you're going to have to take a hard look at it. What are some of the things that you guys think that you didn't do especially well in that game that you're going to have to do better at this time around to get a W?
Oh, there's a lot of things. I mean, we didn't play very well at all. We turned the ball over, which is probably the biggest thing that you can't do against a quality team. And I think we gave them 2 or 3 possessions inside of our own red zone, which is a recipe for disaster. But you got to take care of the ball. They do an outstanding job defending the run. You got to be able to be at least make them defend it and hopefully be able to chip away at it, I would say, and be multiple on offense. So and then defensively, obviously, we got to limit some big plays. I think they hit a couple nice ones, and Sadler had a really nice game. So they're certainly a very, very good opponent. OJ does a great job down there at Augie. So we know what we're getting into. But again, playing a team twice it's tough to beat a team twice. So we're going to go down there and give it a go.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you making time for us. Since I live in Sioux Falls, I will stop on over and I'll be at the game. So I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing at that point, maybe, who ends up being the team that advances.
Well, we'll see you on Saturday then. Hopefully it's nice down there, and appreciate what you guys do. This is an awesome setup here, and can't thank you guys enough for having me.
Thanks, Coach.
Good luck, Coach.
Bemidji State head coach Brent Bolte joined us. Thank you again, Coach, for joining us. Let's switch to Super Region 3, guys. Let me pull that up very quickly, or as quickly as I can do anything. All right, Ferris State will be the host and get the bye in the first round. Excuse me, they'll be the number 1 seed. Number 2, Harding will face Washburn. Number 3, Northwest Missouri will host Central Washington, and number 4, Grand Valley will play Lindenwood. So for all the complaining I might have done, and for whatever, I can tell you that I'm happy not to see Harding and Northwest Missouri playing in the first round.
We all have our eyes on that second round matchup, though.
Yeah, well, they couldn't keep me happy. They could only let me not complain for 1 week, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brandon, you'll be happy to hear Harding hasn't played Washburn since 1976, and it's the first ever matchup between Lindenwood and Grand Valley. So a couple of pretty new matchups, and Northwest and Central Washington haven't played since 2009. So at least some new matchups for you in this region.
But the MIAA are like, they're going to knock each other out in the first 2 rounds. I mean, ouch.
Yeah. Well, they got Kearney in the other region, so maybe they can make it far. So it's the way it is kind of deal. There's always the travel thing for the first 2 rounds, I think, kind of put Grand Valley and Lindenwood there, match up well with Ferris for possible limiting travel over 600 miles at second round. And I was kind of looking at all the numbers after the regional rankings, the bracket came out and everything. And it looks like Harding and Northwest for that 2 spot was a pretty close kind of numbers wise. Harding had the advantage with the win-loss percentage and the results versus D2 ranked opponents, but Northwest had the advantage on the strength of schedule and the performance indicators. So it's kind of a back and forth thing. Southeastern Oklahoma, I believe, was the last team ranked in here over Pitt State. Both finished 8-3, but Southeast Oklahoma had a better record, and D2 opponents that were ranked in the regional rankings, I think, put them over Pitt State for that 10 spot and ultimately gave Harding the 2 spot over Northwest. And for Grand Valley, they trailed Northwest in win-loss percentage, performance indicator, and results versus D2 opponents. So I think that's why they were down a little farther in the rankings there to that 4 spot. And that's why Northwest jumped them, in quotes, kind of there for that 3 spot, even though each ranking is separate from each other with that. So I think it's a pretty good. I was shocked that Washburn got that last spot over Ouachita Baptist. But looking at the numbers, the only thing they kind of lent to that for me was the result versus D2 ranked opponents. Washburn went 1-1 while Ouachita went 1-2. That's the only thing I can see that's separating those 2 teams and getting 3 MIAA teams in over a extra GAC team.
Devin, I agree with your take right there, especially that the Ouachita Baptist not getting in versus the Washburn. If you take a look, and that's really when you have this situation that we have with the MIAA and the GAC, both of them having this fully siloed schedule, where we're going to have a strength of schedule for 500 for everybody, and then we're also going to be looking at moving at where you have this, if you have the same exact record, and then also you have the same SOS, and you have the same performance indicator, and you have the same exact wins over 500. I mean, you're creating a clone right there. So they inescapably had to go there. Now, I don't personally agree that Harding should be on the 2 line. I think it's almost inexcusable. If I take a look, Northwest Missouri State had a 533 SOS. That's clearly far and away better than a 500 SOS. And the difference in 1 game played is minuscule in the overall numbers. And, you take a look at that, and the fact that Northwest had almost a point higher performance indicator. They both have the same amount of quality wins, but then in the far right-hand column, all of a sudden that ends up being the biggest thing in this super region where, if you're anywhere close to somebody, we're going to go right to that far right column. And frankly, I didn't see that happening with the other super regions. And I think this super region really was clinging to that. And frankly, I thought Northwest Missouri State should have been too.
Yeah. And my thing with this a little bit kind of going off of that is, I get you want to use the ranked versus D2 opponents kind of deal, but it's so hard to do that with silo scheduling. So, is Southeastern Oklahoma better than Pitt State? We'll never know because we don't know how the strength of the MIAA and GAC are against each other because they don't play out of conference. So, I'm not sure about it. It's the only thing I could kind of look at when looking at all the numbers. I know Northwest, their SOS was higher because they didn't play Lincoln, which if they would have played them, it would have been another win, but the SOS would have been 500 right with Harding. So I think that was kind of a wash. I think the committee was like, yeah, it's higher, but it's kind of a fake higher kind of deal with that.
I don't think you can live in the world of make-believe there.
Exactly. That was my thought too.
I do.
Personally, and I was really shocked by this because the 533 weighted OWP, in my opinion, is much more important than number
results versus D2 ranked.
No doubt,
right? Because it's a circular argument there. In addition, it is also one of the first five categories that has to be considered. The versus ranked opponents is a category that does not have to be considered. So I just thought they were giving, and one led in one and one led in the other, and it was just one game. I just thought it was a weird selection, probably one of the weirdest I can remember in quite a while. But
Brandon, there was also someone in the chat who's asking, did the lack of the games that Grand Valley played hurt them? I do think it did. I always felt that Grand Valley having 2 less games than Harding always kind of kept them at arm's length, whereas they had a considerably higher strength of schedule for a good portion of this time, maybe the entire time for that matter. And I really think that they kind of said, you know what, we're going to let you host, but we're not going to let you get too high up on this. That was just my own kind of take on that as we went through, and the fact that they're 0-1 in that far right category that we're placing so much weight on.
Well, let me tell you why that's not Grand Valley's fault, because I'm
not saying whose fault it is.
No, I know. I'm defending Grand Valley here. Of course, I get accused of this all the time, but
you are defending Grand Valley, but
yeah, but they can't play anybody in the GAC. They can't play anybody in the MIAA. So they have to travel hundreds of miles more than they should be to play somebody not in their own super region. It's not their fault. Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Not to mention the fact that remember what happened in week 1, right? When nobody wanted to play Grand Valley. So
right, that's true. It's not like they didn't try.
There's not they didn't try. Nobody wanted to play them.
Right. Well, they had to schedule Division III because they have nobody else to play. And then I believe next year they got Colorado Mines and Pueblo on the schedule. So they're also willing to go anywhere. And so I feel the way this was done, I really feel it should have been Ferris, Northwest Grand Valley, Harding. Nonetheless, it is what it is. One thing
super close, no matter how we do it. Right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
And that's why I kind of thought going into this week that 2, 3, and 4 just kind of depend on what the committee valued the most in the things. And I think we found out in the end that in this region they valued that ranked versus ranked opponents, which is kind of ranking teams off of how you view teams. So it's kind of your own circular argument with it, because they view as Southeastern Oklahoma over Pitt State, which affects Northwest Harding. It's very interesting how that all kind of works out. And I think Saginaw Valley actually losing hurt Grand Valley as well, because they might have actually been able to sneak in to that 10th spot, and they might have got another ranked versus D2 opponent kind of would have helped theirs as well, kind of going forward. And Inkblot wants to mention as well, this has been the first region ever with 5 conferences represented in it as well, with Central Washington coming in, with UNK coming out, with Lindenwood there as well. So kind of an interesting subplot for this as well.
Well, it could have been much more interesting with the flip of 2 teams. It could have been a much more. Nonetheless, a team that made it and that we thought was going to be number 5 was Lindenwood. Yep. And the Lions will face Grand Valley in the first round. Joining us now is their head coach, Jed Stugart. Jed, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thanks, Brandon. Good to be here. Good to listen to you guys a little bit.
Thank you very much.
Finally, I'm talking to people who know what they're talking about a little bit. That helps.
Whoa. You're on. Are you sure you know who you are?
Well, I mean, Whit's still on here, though, but
Whoa. Why we got to get Whit already?
I'm beating you to the punch here.
Yes.
He knows what's up. The coach knows what's up.
Hey, Coach, I really appreciate you joining us. Let me ask you, preseason, you guys, of course, win the GLVC the year before, go undefeated. Then you go ahead and you get your preseason GLVC, poll, and Lindenwood's not on the 1 spot, despite the fact that they return Conference Player of the Year on both sides of the ball. Did your guys take that at all as a little bit of a slight to start your season?
All I did was just pass on the information that they voted. I don't know if they took it. I don't know. We've known each other a long time. We used to kind of get that kind of stuff at Sioux Falls once in a while, and it was always and so we just carried on down here. I think, with all due respect, I mean, the history of Indianapolis, the great program they are, and the history they've had. I mean, it didn't surprise me. I mean, it's I wasn't really that offended, I think, but I think our players felt a little bit. I think it's just one of those things where us coaches probably spend less time thinking about those things. And but our kids pay attention. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys. Go ahead then. You start off the year playing a very good Angelo State squad. Come out on the wrong side of that one. Then you have a real tough one up at South Dakota State. A game, frankly, that any Division II football team is going to struggle with as well. So you're kind of off to a rough start. Long, ride back and everything else. Let me ask, how were you guys able to rally the troops and then win 9 straight and go undefeated in the GLVC again?
Well, I think, number one, I think I probably underestimated a little bit being off 640 days and playing. I really downplayed that a lot. I didn't think it'd be that big a deal because we practiced a lot in the fall. We had a normal spring ball, but that first game, I just felt like it wouldn't be as big of a factor. And this is probably the only time I've talked about it because we don't believe in excuses here and we don't talk about excuses. But now looking back, I do think we're just a different team now. And we just didn't seem to have that same kind of fire because we just hadn't played a game in a long time. And but here's the deal: we had our chances to win that game against Angelos many times. We closed it up, and then you go on the road, and we entered a buzzsaw there at South Dakota State. Got to remember that they're all really good friends of ours, known each other a long time, and but. Like I told our team going up there, this is a team that barely lost the national championship. They're not going to care that you're a D2 team right now. They're in your way, and we were, and there's no doubt. But I think again, some of that residue of the first week, because there was a bunch of bright spots out of that game. The score just didn't indicate it, and we, So I think to answer your question, to come back. That next week, we kind of basically burned the first 2 games and said, if you want, our direction is one of our pillars we talk about in our program, and one of those was if you want to be a playoff team, then these are the changes we have to make. These are the things you got to buy into, and we're going to have to run the table. And we just kind of went back to our 1-0 mentality every week, and next man up. That's kind of been our mantra too, and that's come to fruition. So yeah. So proud of these guys. They've been through a lot.
Well, let me ask you guys, speaking of been through a lot, you guys, Cade Brister comes out. He basically is a all-American type quarterback. Basically, gets lost middle of the season with an injury. Cole Duggar comes in, plays really well, then gets injured with kind of a questionable hit there at William Jewell. I watched that game. And then, you guys are playing with a third-string quarterback at the moment, Alex Fadul, who's played, quarterback in high school and is a very capable wideout, has been productive for you. You guys look like offensively you haven't missed too much of a beat. What can you tell me a little bit about what Alex brings to your offense?
Well, Alex was here when we got here and played as a true freshman as a quarterback here with the previous coaching staff. And then we redshirted him that next year because we just felt like a part of our rebuilding and building a program, we felt like we wanted to give Alex a year because he was kind of in our future to be our quarterback. When we recruited Cade Brister, Cade just honestly came in and was able to win that spot. And, Alex being a very talented quarterback, dual threat type quarterback, but we couldn't keep an athlete like that stand on the sideline. What I love about Alex, the great story is, you hear all these transfer portals and you hear kids aren't happy. The first thing they want to do is leave. And I brought Alex in here when Cade won the job and said, Alex, I know you're a quarterback and I will do anything right now to help you. If you want to go somewhere and be a quarterback, I'll help you. We want you to be here and be part of this team. He says, Coach, I love this team. This is where I want to be. And he sacrificed that where, this day and age, people just go hit the transfer portal and leave. There's not enough media stories about guys like Alex that say, you know what, adversity hit a little bit. So I'm going to put myself aside and put the team first. And so we have a team full of guys like that. I think that's attributes to our success. So that's really the thing I'm most impressed with Alex. He's got so much confidence by his team that when Cade went down and Cole, who we redshirt freshman, but we have so much. Cole's earned this respect. This team is a very good quarterback, but we made Alex kind of emergency quarterback because we'd either have to pull a red shirt, and we had another red shirt quarterback come back from a foot injury that it had just barely gotten cleared. We just felt like Alex was the best. If you remember Carrington Hanna, the University of Sioux Falls, when we were there, we did the same thing when Luke and Luke Papillion and Matt Young went down. We moved Carrington because we believe in recruiting athletic quarterbacks. That way, if somebody gets beat out, they've got a place on the field. And we did the same thing with Carrington. So, and he won a bunch of games for us too. And so once you know that offense, the offense is what's key. The mechanics of being quarterback stuff really aren't as important as just knowing what you're supposed to do. So Alex is highly intelligent, knows our offense, and has a ton of respect by our teammates. And his biggest cheerleader is Cade Brister for practice and on the sideline and being another coach out there for us right now.
I love hearing that. And Coach, you've been watching the regional rankings of the last few weeks. And what's your reaction to when they unveiled Super Region 3 a few hours ago? And what do you kind of know about your opponent?
Well, I think it's I think it's a good draw for us. You know, I really respect Grand Valley State. I've been up there once as a coach, and I was at Northern Colorado when Brian Kelly was the head football coach there. And so been in that environment, it's changed a lot. I mean, they've done a great job with that program and as far as even the stadium and everything. I think, you know, part of the reason we play South Dakota State and every year we try to get an FCS opponent is we want to put our kids on a big stage. We want them to play against the best possible talent. And so even crowd-wise, we played in front of 15,000 people in South Dakota State, and that's probably might be who we play against Grand Valley State. So it's not going to be new for our players either. They've kind of been in that. They love that atmosphere. So, and I've listened to, you know, that's the thing. We listen to the discussions about how people come to these conclusions, and we coaches, you know, it's like we're just happy to be in it because I know it's a criteria that they're supposed to follow, but sometimes, you know, you scratch your head and say, okay, and that probably goes back to being 10-1 once and not even making the tournament when you had 5 of the top criteria, you don't even make the tournament. You start realizing there is some subjectivity, but you get to the point where you just are happy to, you know, it's just a blessing to be in it because everybody's good now. You got to go on the road eventually to win anyway. So
yeah, I think it's what top 5% of the D2 teams make the playoffs. So you guys are in elite company here either way. So especially Super Region 3, it's a tough region.
Yeah, absolutely, Devin. It's you know, yeah, you'd love to be at home and stuff like that, but yeah, it's like you said, it's great to be here.
Coach, let me ask, a good portion of our viewing audience has no idea of a past life that you had as an aspiring country music artist.
Oh, brother.
Okay. So my question for you is, you know, and for those who don't know, you know, Jed toured with the likes of Tim McGraw and Chris Ledoux, and probably he could name drop a few others. But let me ask, do you happen to have a guitar handy, Coach? Can you give us anything that you got? Maybe some Eagles, something else you like?
Well, I do happen to have a guitar. Anytime you're a songwriter, whether you're a football coach or songwriter, you know a song might hit you all of a sudden. So you got to have a guitar close by, and I've got really good coaches here. A lot of people know me. They don't let me do anything anyway as far as coaching. So I sit up here and write songs, and they're over there getting ready for Grand Valley State. I'm just sitting in here writing some songs and talking to you guys just so I'm not bored. So of course I do. You know me long enough.
Sure. So what do you got for us tonight?
Well, you've suggested earlier today. I mean, you gave me a little hint, obviously, but you suggested Eagles. Eagles are always a good call.
Coach, actually, you know what I had in mind? I forgot to tell you. We were going to have you and Dusty Havorka, your offensive coordinator, who also plays guitar. We're going to see if you guys could do maybe like the guitar solo at Hotel California or something like that.
He's actually working right now. I'm gonna let him.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Grand Valley's defense. I've watched them now for about an hour today, and so I'm gonna keep him in the office working on that defense right now. So I'll appease you with the little Eagles. How's that sound?
That's great. Thank you.
All right, because I love the Eagles and little Take It Easy. We're going on the road to Michigan, so I'll do a little Take It Easy. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Well, I'm running down the road trying to loosen my load. I got 7 women on my mind. 4 that want to own me, true that wanna stone me once, so she's a friend of mine. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. Lighten up while you still can. Don't even try to understand. Just find a place to take your stand. Take it easy.
Oh, thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate you making time for us, and I knew that you would go ahead and show us the talents that you have, and we'll have to have you back again. Give us another song too, okay?
Yeah, give me a little heads up. I'll write one just for the occasion.
Yep, they're absolutely. See, I'm a Northwest grad, so I'm gonna say this Lindenwood by 90 next week for that song right there. Lindenwood by 90.
There we go.
I like it. It hasn't been. I still like you, Devin. It hasn't been a pleasant past. I had a great season, but I lost my job after the second round of the playoffs. But anyway, that's tough. That was speaking of a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us, Coach. Really appreciate you having you here. Good luck
Guys, I
getting
got to
stuff
tell you
developed.
Thanks.
from a lot of D2 coaches, everybody, all my buddies in D2, we are most grateful for you guys, the way you cover D2, and it means a lot to us. So thanks for all that you do for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks, Coach.
Hi, guys.
Jed Stugart, the head coach at Lindenwood, and his Lions will take on Grand Valley. All right, guys. Normally, we do our pick segment last or near the end, but we're going to go ahead and do it today. I told our crew that we needed to be prepared to pick all 12 first-round games. And so Coach Justin Polizzi is going to rejoin us. Unfortunately, Justin, his team was eliminated in the playoffs by 1 point on Friday. Is that correct? Yeah. Hey, great effort, though. So, you know, what a great season you guys had. That's certainly something to be proud of. And, you know, only one team gets to finish the season with a win. And that's the nature of competition, you know?
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, it was a tough one, but it is what it is. And you start, your focus goes to next year. So appreciate it.
But we're really proud of you. So congratulations
Absolutely.
on a great season. So
thank y'all.
We didn't take the coaches in 1, 2, 3, 4.
You screwed, Thomas.
But we're gonna pick the teams and the games in 1, 2, 3, 4 order. We don't have the graphics from our pick 'em. I got killed last week. I didn't get a single game right. None of us did really well. Yeah, I didn't even know until I went to the bottom of our document that we collaborate on, and I looked. I'm like, holy fuck!
Yeah. If I got them all wrong, I wouldn't post it either. I understand.
Yeah. So you understand, you know?
Yeah. I don't actually go do that bad, but I understand. Yes.
Well, that's the first step. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead. We've got Bentley at New Haven, a rematch of a game played earlier. I'm going to go last on all of them. Since anytime you go 0 for 5, you get to go last. Isn't that the rule, Justin?
Fair rule. Fair rule.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely is.
Okay, so let's start with Devin.
Yeah, it is.
Devin, New Haven or Bentley?
I'll go with New Haven.
Okay.
I'll go New Haven.
Okay. Whit?
You know what? I watched Bentley the other day, the other morning. Had some time in them early, and I really liked the way they came on in that football game against Assumption. I think they're going to get revenge here, and I like Bentley.
Okay. And Chuck?
It's hard to beat a good team twice. I'm actually going to go with Bentley here as well.
Okay. K. Ferg?
It's hard to beat a good team twice, but New Haven's at home. I'm taking New Haven.
Awesome. Justin?
You know, I think it's really, really hard to play a team twice in the same
I've heard that
I mean,
before.
I know it is, but yeah, exactly. But I think Bentley's going to edge New Haven on the road.
Okay. I was pretty impressed by New Haven's dominant performance in that game. I'm going to go ahead and take New Haven in this one.
We got a nice split there to start this off with. I like this.
It was.
There we go.
So All right, Slippery Rock and Notre Dame. So now the good thing about this game is we've got to actually pick who we think will win because we won't be influenced by a coach coming on the show and being a nice guy because we've had both of them on the show. So Notre Dame is hosting Slippery Rock. We'll start with you, Whit.
Yes, and I'm convinced that you brought the coach on just to troll me since I had said things about them earlier in the year. But in any event, I've been up and down with Slippery Rock. I watched their game the other day, and their slot win, great player, went down with a knee, and in the rain they struggled a little bit throwing the ball here in times, and I don't think that their matchup with Notre Dame's an ideal one for them. I like Notre Dame to be able to control the action. I got Notre Dame in that one.
Okay. Chuck.
Yeah, Slippery Rock's had a lot of injuries in the last two games, and I think that's really kind of caught up to them a little bit. I really like Notre Dame's defense in this. I think it's going to be good, but I'm going to go with Notre Dame.
Okay. All right. Chris.
Same, Notre Dame.
Okay. Justin?
I've been on the Slippery Rock bandwagon all year, and I'm not going to get off yet. So Slippery Rock.
Okay, very good. Devin?
I think I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I was kind of back and forth in this game, but with Chuck and everybody saying that injuries kind of pile up, Slippery Rock, it's hard to trust when you get so many injuries piled up. It's only not your fault thing. You're just kind of at the whim of your depth kind of deal. I'm not sure how good their depth is, so give me Notre Dame.
Okay. And I am going to go with Notre Dame as well. I think the way Slippery Rock operates their offense, needing all three of those weapons in the perimeters is a big deal. I agree with Whit. Last game in Super Region 1, Shepherd hosts Findlay. We will start with Chuck on this one.
Sometimes the earned access teams can be sneaky good when they get in, and I talked a little bit earlier about, I think Findlay might be a little bit better than we think they are. I just don't think that they're good enough. I'm going to go Shepherd.
Okay. Chris.
You'll be happy to know that fantasy football has ended since the regular season has ended. Nonetheless, I'm going to stay on the Bajent train, and I'm going to go with Shepherd.
Okay. Justin.
Shepherd.
Yeah. Devin.
Okay, didn't Lindenwood get in 2 years ago with earned access and they won the first round? Is that what happened there? So kind of a dangerous, I think so. I don't remember for sure on that, but I'm going to go.
It might have just been 7, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I'm going to go with Shepherd on this one. As dangerous as a team like this could be, I'm going to take Shepherd.
Okay, Matt.
I'm also going to take Shepherd. I just think that their offense is too much at this point.
I think that's where I'm going with. I think it's, I think it's too much at this point. Exactly. So, all right. So let's go ahead and switch to Super Region 2. We will start with the Albany State at West Georgia game, and K. Ferg is going first.
I don't think this is a good draw for Albany State. I just don't. I think West Georgia is going to have enough offense to get past Albany here. So I'm going to go with West Georgia.
Okay. All right, Justin. Oh, come on. We know where this one's going.
What? No, I agree with Chris. I think the offense for West Georgia is starting to click. They're getting better and better each week. So I'm going to go with the West Georgia on the road.
Okay. All right. Devin.
So Albany State does have a really good defense, and that's giving me a lot of pause here because defense can kind of travel even if you're at home. It just does really well in the playoffs. But I'm going to go with West Georgia here. I think they've been tested a lot this year, so give me West Georgia.
Okay. Whit.
Well, okay, Ferg. Well. Apparently, I have more faith in this deal than you do. You bet you do that. You bet. You might want to go hide it. You might want to go find a spot in that map somewhere. That's right. I'm taking Albany State, and I watched a little bit of them. They were on the ESPN earlier this morning, and I watched them, and they'll knock the taste out of your mouth. They go hit people. So and you know what? West Georgia's given up some points here and there. So I think we got a 28-26 kind of game, and apparently some of us believe in them a little more than others.
All right. All right. Chuck.
I just don't think Albany has quite enough offense for this, and I think it's a tough draw. So I'm going to go West Georgia. I really am excited to watch that Albany defense, though.
Okay. I'm going to go with Matt, and I'm going to take Albany State for the virtual upset. So it's an upset by rankings, but I'll go with Matt. Sorry, Matt. I probably cursed you there.
No,
Kiss of death.
That's okay.
Yeah. All right. So let me see. Let's go Newberry at West Florida and start with Justin.
Man, it's West Florida. I mean, their offense started clicking yesterday. They started looking like they did in the beginning of the year. And if they play like that, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat them here in the playoffs.
You guys know he said that like anybody who has a different answer is an idiot. It's West Georgia. That's the only answer.
Oh, there's a lot of conviction right there. I like that.
I do too. So he got out of he's no longer coaching, so he doesn't have to have coach speak. He's out of that mode. He's like, you fools can pick whoever you want, but we all know it's West Florida. So all right. And the next fool to pick would be Devin.
Yeah, so West Florida got me a big win last week, picking them over Valdosta State because their star quarterback was kind of my main reason there. And with Chuck saying earlier that Newberry is just not a good matchup then with West Florida, I'm taking West Florida in this one.
Okay. And Matt.
Yeah, and taking a look at how West Florida, by the way, a lot of good balance in that football game, run and pass. Not just
a lot of it was Reed himself.
Yeah. I mean, he had a big run and some other chunk stuff, and I just think Newberry's overmatched here, and I realize that could be on their bulletin board and all that stuff, and that's fine. But I got West Florida by a big number. Yeah.
Okay. Chuck.
It's
South Atlantic columnist Chuck Bittner. Who is your selection?
Yeah, I mean this isn't. It's West Florida, and for me, this isn't about Newberry. This is about West Florida. They're just that good. I mean, 61 points against Valdosta State. Who saw that? I mean, come on. Right. They're just that good. They are peaking at the right time. It's a really tough draw for Newberry. So I just want to see them compete and play well. And if they play their best football, then we'll see how it plays out. But I'm gonna go with West Florida.
Okay, Chris.
Don't feel bad, Chuck. They came after me. I'm going to pick Newberry.
What?
To not win this game. To not win this game. No, this is West Florida all the way. This is probably the most lopsided game. I mean, they're the biggest underdog here in the region.
Even with the loss, if West Florida, I don't know what the poll's going to be, but I guarantee they're going to get some number one votes again. In spite of the fact that Ferris is undefeated, I really believe after doing that to Valdosta, they're going to get some number one votes again. But I'm going to pick West Florida. So, all right, Lenore Ryan at Bowie State, and who will go first? Devin Albertson will go first.
I really want to take Lenore Ryan in this game just because of the Bowie comments in my Twitter, but I'm going to take Bowie State with this one. I thought about being a little bit vindictive, but I think Bowie State's still a good football team. They're going to score some points. I think Lenore Ryan gives them a good game. I mean, it's an interesting matchup there. I just think Bowie State pulls it out in the end.
Hey, if you have the choice to be vindictive, it's always the choice. So I think you're making a bad selection.
That's usually the way I go, Brandon.
So, Matt.
Yeah, I think this is a really good football game, and with Lenore Ryan playing better, and there's a part of me that thinks that they may kind of be able to take that, but I really like the Bowie defense when I've gotten glimpses of them this year, and Maybe it's the fact that I want to see them play West Florida in the next round, but we're going to go with Bowie nonetheless.
Okay. Chuck.
I am really excited about this matchup. I think it's going to be an awesome game, and Lenore Ryan is really playing their best football of the year right now. So I'm going to go with Lenore Ryan.
Okay. Okay, Ferg, come on.
You can go ahead and go to the next person. You already knew who I'm picking.
Yes. All right, Justin.
We thought we did before too, but that was another story.
No. There's a line here. There's a line here.
Yes. All right, Justin, Bowie State or Lenore Ryan?
I think this is one of the closer matchups in Super Region 2. I've gone back and forth on it a couple times, but I think Lenore Ryan's playing really well right now. They had a couple bad losses early to Wise, UVA Wise being one of them. But what they did to Catawba yesterday at home, I think they're playing really well. I think Lenore Ryan's going to squeak one out on the road.
Okay. I'm going to go with Bowie State. All right, so that's 1 and 2. Let's go to Super Region 3. We'll start with Lindenwood at Grand Valley, and Matt Witwicky is the first selector.
Yeah, I think as much as I like the run that Lindenwood has gone on, they just simply haven't played an opponent the caliber of Grand Valley, not to mention with their third-string quarterback at this point. So I think that's a tough ask for them to go there on the road and win that game. So I got Grand Valley.
All right. Chuck.
Yeah, Grand Valley for all the same reasons that Whit mentioned.
And I'll be getting a text message any moment from the guy who was singing a moment ago, confronting me. I mean, talking to me about the.
All right, Kate first.
Grand Valley.
Okay. Justin.
Grand Valley.
Devin Albertson.
Okay, so I said Lindenwood by 90 earlier. That was a joke. I'm taking Grand Valley in this one. I think Lindenwood is going to give them maybe a little better game than we're kind of expecting a little bit with the perception of the GLVC. I think it might be a little closer than we're kind of thinking originally, but I think Grand Valley they're too tough. I mean, they were toe-to-toe with Ferris State, who we think is one of the best teams in the nation. So Grand Valley, they're just a really good football team. It's a tough draw for Lindenwood playing Grand Valley. You win that, you play Ferris. You win that, you can play Northwest. I mean, that's good luck with getting through that region kind of deal for Lindenwood. Kind of a tough draw for them.
Well, I will go with, in spite of the fact that I don't think Grand Valley's is playing as well as they were before the Ferris game. They kind of hit a little lull after that. I think it's headed in the right direction, and it's probably it's the best time to be headed in the right direction. But I think their ceiling is higher, and I think they'll win this game. Yeah. All right, so let's go. Central Washington at Northwest Missouri. Chuck, you are the first selector.
Northwest Missouri.
Okay. Chris.
Northwest.
Okay. Justin.
Northwest.
Okay. Devin.
I'm going to take the Northwest. It's not going to be as close as it was last time they played in 09 when Northwest won 21-20 by blocking an extra point in the last seconds of the game to win it. Just tough trip for Central Washington across the nation pretty much, but Northwest, their defense is just playing lights out. They held Emporia to 106 yards of offense on Saturday. They're averaging like 350 a game. So they're playing pretty lights out on that side of the ball.
Central Washington has been all over the country already. I don't think this will phase them.
That's
They're
true.
Used to this stuff. So
Well, Central Washington just beat Simon Fraser 70-0, Devin. So
sorry, I don't know.
There you have it. So look out. But they have played really two strong opponents this year. They beat one, lost to the other, and they played both of them well. I think what you're going to find, Devin, you're going to go ahead, obviously, and have to dig into that a little bit on your side with your column. But I've gone ahead and watched a little bit of them that I could find, and they're a good defensive team that wants to run the ball first and be an opportunistic passing team, kind of almost like a profile of like USF. I just don't think that they have enough playmakers to be able to break through against that Northwest defense. So I definitely got the Bearcats.
Okay. I will pick Northwest Missouri as well. Harding is hosting Washburn. And we'll start with Chuck last one. So, Chris, we're going to start with you.
Ooh, that's a really good matchup. but I'm going to stick with Harding. I've been going with them for much of the season, so Harding for me.
Okay. Justin.
I'm going to go with Harding.
Okay. Devin.
I'm going to roll with Harding. I think Washburn is kind of a team that sticks around with a lot of people. They don't do one thing great, which I think can win you a lot of games in conference play, but when you get to the playoffs, you got to have one thing you kind of rely on that you're great at, and they just don't have that this year. I think Harding, they're great at running the football. They're really good on defense. I think it's going to be the edge here. I think it's a close game, but Harding pulls it out.
And Matt.
Yeah, taking a look at it, Washburn lost to Kearney this year, runs an option.
Mm-hmm.
Harding's a little more hardcore option.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Traditional option, yeah.
Like they throw, like their quarterback's throwing 34 passes all year, kind of hardcore.
Right. The difference is Kearney wants to sneak it over you once in a while. Harding just wants to punch you in the face every play. It's a different way to run the offense.
Absolutely. So
I don't know if it's a jab. I think it's an overhand right all the time.
It's actually a very explosive kind of offense.
It is, and it's fascinating to watch up close. And they're going to come up to the line. They're going to look like they're snapping. Then they're going to stop. They're going to take a snapshot of what you're doing, and then they're going to figure out what they're going to do. And it's fascinating to watch. But they're also a really good defensive team, I think. So
I think that's the best part of their team. That's the most impressive part of their team, if you ask me, is their defense.
Yeah, and I've got Harding, and I'm setting the over/under on Harding passes at 4.
I'm more interested in the time of game. Will it be under 2 hours or not?
Yeah. They play a fast football game. I can tell you that. Yes.
Chuck.
Yeah, I've whiffed on Harding a couple of times this year, so I'm just going to go with them for a lot of the same reasons you guys talked about. I'm going Harding.
And as will I. All right. Super Region 3 is done. We now move to Super Region 4. And Bemidji State plays Augustana. And luckily, Matt does not have to start this time. Chris, were you first last time, or are you first this time?
First
you were last time?
Yep.
Okay, Justin, your turn then. Justin, please start us off.
All right. I'm going to go with Bemidji in this one.
Boom. Anything behind that, or just for the shock value?
Just go Beavers.
A little bit of both. No, I had an opportunity to watch them this past weekend in the snow, and I don't know. I like the matchup. I think that
they can chuck it a little bit.
Yeah.
Anytime you can go up in the snow and play, it's I don't know. I've been there, done that. Got the T-shirt, so.
Yeah, they scored a 60 spot in the snow, so I know what you mean. Yeah.
Devin.
Kind of going back and forth in this. I know Augie really took it to him the first time they played, but I think Bemidji's a lot better now, and I think they've been a little more seasoned going through the conference play. I'm going to roll with Augie, but there's not a whole lot of confidence in my pick with that. I like their offense a lot. Their defense just doesn't quite give me a whole lot of faith in this game, though.
Okay. Matt.
I think Malik Williams, who's a superstar slot.
Well, hold on. Oh, no, go ahead.
Yes,
I forgot we were supposed to implement the columnist goes last rule.
I know.
But we haven't
done the Super Region 3. Let's just keep going.
I figured I'd stick the landing. Yep. Malik Williams is a superstar slot player for Bemidji, and he had kind of a dud of a game and just did not look like he was ready to go and everything else against Augie. Augustana has given up some air yards and been had a little bit through the air towards the back portion of this season. And I think that's a little bit of a risk with Bemidji. So I think you're going to have a really good football game here. I'm still taking Augustana to win, but I think this is going to be quite the battle.
Okay. Chuck.
Yeah, I watched Bemidji this morning and really enjoyed watching that game. The NSIC expert that I know said that Bemidji never runs the football, but they actually ran pretty impressively in that game.
It was snowing, Chuck.
They threw the ball pretty well in that game too. I like that team. We already talked about how it's difficult to be the same team twice, but I think Augustana will get it done. So I'm going to go Augie.
Chris.
I'm going to stand with Justin here. I'm going to go with Bemidji.
Okay.
Hey, I will say snow games are great to watch from home.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Agreed.
Chuck, did you happen to notice that my guy Danny Kittner happened to catch 19 balls for 284 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just thought I'd put another plug in for him getting the Harlan Hill. Carry on, Brandon.
It was actually one of the reasons I watched that game. I wanted to see some of that. So yeah, very impressive.
I'm going to pick Augustana. Vikings win that game. Nebraska Kearney at Western Colorado. And we will start with Devin Albertson.
I'm going to roll with UNK. The defense kind of worries me a little bit, but I kind of want to see TJ Davis shine in the playoffs for a couple of weeks. So I think they get a little change of scenery from getting out of the MIAA play a little bit. I think they get a win here against the former conference opponent there in the RMAC.
All right. Whit.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch Western Colorado against Pueblo this weekend, which was a bowling shoe ugly game, 14-7. But Western ends up winning that game and is a very good and physical defense, likes to run the football. Grass field, high at 7,000 feet altitude. I think there's a lot of challenges for UNK here, but I'm not sure that I don't know if they've seen something quite like what Kearney's going to offer with this, with the fact that they can run the option and do some other things with it. I think Kearney's a little more tested. I'm going to take Kearney in this
one. All right, Chuck.
I've really enjoyed following Western Colorado this year. I think I've watched 4 of their games. They're very solid, they're very disciplined, and very opportunistic. So they can win this game if Kearney gives them some turnovers. But I think that this is a difficult matchup, and I think that it's been a great season for Western, but I think it probably ends this weekend. I'm going to go with Kearney.
Chris.
So this is one of the 2 games that I'm actually considering going to because I want to go out west.
You are a road warrior, brother. I love you, man.
Absolutely.
And I think it's fascinating for all the reasons you guys mentioned. I think that the offense here is going to trump the defense just because the RMAC just hasn't had like this explosive offense this year. It's kind of been grinded out games. So I like Kearney in this game.
I think even Mines hasn't been as good offensively as we thought they would have been this year.
No.
All right, Chris. Justin.
Y'all picking Kearney's got me second guessing myself, but I'm going Western Colorado on this one. So
okay.
Yeah.
They're a better defensive team.
You notice he didn't say it's Western Colorado this time, so you can tell he's not nearly as confident as he was.
Not at all. Not at all.
I think Western Colorado is a very good defensive team, a solid team. I think Nebraska Kearney can be had on defense, but I just don't think Western Colorado is the team that can do that to them.
Right.
So I'm going to pick Kearney in that game.
I sure hope this game is during the day, though, because if it's at night, it's supposed to be 18.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, then why would you choose to go there?
Why not?
Yeah.
It's not going to be snowing.
If it's during the day, it's 50 and nice, and it's up in the mountains. It's a good time.
I think the NCAA pretty much mandates the start time for these games. So
yeah, they're all like noon and 1, right? Yeah,
you have to get an exemption. I mean, you can get it, but
not even sure if the Mountaineer Bowl has lights. So it's going to be an afternoon.
It's 3 Eastern, so it's what 1 o'clock out there then.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
I have always thought it'd be awesome to go 11 Eastern, and stagger them so we could all watch all the games, but.
Yes, but they don't schedule like that for us nerds, right?
Yeah, for the 6 people like us that want to watch all.
You know what? They don't schedule for us, and they don't pick the playoff participants for us, and it's really starting to hang me. So
yes.
Anyway, all right. So that's our selections, guys.
Hey, at least all the games are free to watch. All the games are free to watch. That's the important thing.
True.
Did we pick Angelo in Duluth?
Yeah.
So, all right.
No, we didn't pick Angelo in Duluth, did we?
I think we missed Angelo in Duluth.
I love having you guys on here.
Has that been relegated like a bowl game or something? Did we miss that?
Nah, never.
Okay.
Heck, I don't even remember who picked first last time. So, Devin, did you pick first last time? Or was it Justin that picked first? Whatever. Angelo, Minnesota Duluth.
Nope, I'll go. I'll take Angelo.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'll take Angelo.
Okay. Chuck.
Angelo.
Okay. Chris.
The last Lone Star holdout. We're going to go with Angelo.
Okay. Justin.
Angelo.
Okay. Matt.
Well, the last few weeks I've been picking the team that's been playing Duluth because of this whole third string quarterback thing, which has been a complete popcorn fart for me because they've won both games. So with that said, I'm sure that they are in eager anticipation to have me give them more bulletin board material. So I'm going to take Angelo State.
Okay. And I'm going to take the Rams as well. I think they're playing at home, and they are the team to beat there. So there. Now we have picked all games. In the
Justin
first
got
round
his
of the
picks in
playoffs.
and just pieced out.
That's right.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
Yep. So let's switch back and let's focus first on some things that Justin, we're good. Thanks for coming back, but we're good with picks, and we're going to go start taking some complaints, and we appreciate you joining us. And
Justin, would you like to field some complaints?
now we also look forward to your complete attention on the Gulf South, since you won't have to worry about Friday night games. So it'll be an incredibly fun time for you. So we're looking forward to you being able to do that. So thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. And why would I have to worry about complaints with you? You guys got it handled. So I'll just direct all mine to you.
right.
That's right. So thanks, Justin.
Appreciate it, guys.
Have a good one. All right. So let's.
Justin's gonna have like a 5,000 word column for this week for the Gulf South. I can't wait.
Yep. All right. And anybody who needs to on our staff, if you need to, you're good to go, Chuck. Before we let you go, though, Chuck, we want to talk about who should have been in. We mentioned California, right? That they were a possibility, just missed. What else do we got, guys, for people that should have been in?
I'm not going to necessarily say should have been in. Maybe just some acknowledgement for teams that probably had the resume and it was crowded. It was really crowded. I do really feel bad for California. I think that they are a playoff caliber team. Probably should have been in. I had some teams or some people from Shippensburg hit me up on Twitter and saying, how come we didn't make it? And I had to tell them, you're not even the most aggrieved team in this region.
Right.
So I feel they had a great season too. Charleston had a really good season in that super region. Savannah State, it was so close with them and Lenoir-Rhyne, where you're splitting hairs. Savannah State was a team that definitely deserved it. I do think Lenoir-Rhyne deserved it a tiny bit more, but Savannah State. The cool thing about that is it's nice to see that they are a really, really good addition to Division II and the SIAC. I think
absolutely,
they're coming back from the FCS, so that's the exciting part for them.
Yeah, I enjoy seeing, no matter what direction they come from, quality people joining like Frostburg State. We knew they were going to be good. Honestly, Sioux Falls and Lindenwood, when they joined, I was extremely excited to have those two schools in, and this is exactly the same way. So, so let's look at.
Hey, Brandon. I got one other.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Midwestern State, who started kind of in the rankings, and then they just slowly just drifted out. Slowly ended up in that 8 slot, and I think there was a debate about whether you'd get 2 or 3 Northern Sun teams in. And the Lone Star ended up being the sacrificial lamb for that. So I say Midwestern State is another one that actually, I think they're conference champions.
They are.
And remember, conference champions don't matter for playoffs.
Right.
They are. Really good aside, real quickly about Midwestern. Chris, if you haven't looked at it yet, go read the Midwestern State postgame article about their game. There is a savage troll in there about winning the fall championship, where there's actually a sanctioned championship with a trophy. Because if you watched any of the spring season, which not a lot of people did, I know I did, I know you did, there's a pretty savage troll in there. Go read it and see if you pick up on it.
I will.
I
then I know we
enjoy the
mentioned.
snark. They're good.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
I know we mentioned it earlier as well, but you go ahead, Brent. Go ahead, Whit.
No, yeah, I mean, we finished up on Super Region 4. Midwestern State obviously was there, and frankly, they just didn't have enough quality wins. Is really what kind of hurt them at the end of the day, and some of that same kind of thing happened with Colorado Mesa. Both teams that ended up with 2 losses, but just hadn't quite notched enough wins over teams to really, teams over 500 and things like that to really put them in a good spot and a strength of schedule challenge. So yeah, but that doesn't mean they didn't have a great year, and we're literally right there till the end.
Right.
And I know we mentioned it earlier, but the last team we mentioned is Ouachita Baptist. Them and Washburn, the hairs they split there to put 3 MIAA teams over a GAC team. As the MIAA columnist, I was shocked because even like last week, I'm like, I just don't see a way Washburn gets in, even if Ouachita upset Henderson, knocks Henderson out of the top, then Ouachita's right there with that win over Henderson, and they're right there. All the other numbers were even. They just took those ranked D2 opponents. I was just shocked that Washburn got in. That was my initial thing when I saw the rankings. I was absolutely blown away the Ichabods got in. So Ouachita Baptist, great season. We'll probably see them in a bowl game versus like a Pitt State or something like that. Which they'll be able to prove themselves a little bit there versus my MIAA team. I think being out of the bowl games kind of go with that later on.
All right, awesome. So we know Chuck's got to go, and before we get negative and answering everybody's complaints and hatred and whatnot, and I wanted to mention 2 things. One is that Tom Sawyer of Winona State coached his final game, been at Winona forever, Matt, and
25 years, yeah.
A great representative of Winona State.
Yeah. Tom Sawyer has been a fixture there, 25 years, as the head coach, and you take a look, and he's almost a 700 winning percentage. I mean, just kind of the dean of the coaches in the Northern Sun, highly respected guy. And he's going to stay around the program, but probably help with some fundraising and things like that. And, as he leaves, certainly at some point there's going to be some visibility as to who's going to fill that role and things of that sort too.
Right. And another coach who was retiring or is retiring, Marty Schutzel at Mercyhurst. And Chuck, you're a South Atlantic columnist, but a Pennsylvania native. And I think many of the things we just said about Tom Sawyer, we could say about Marty.
20 years at Mercyhurst. This was his 20th. He announced right before the start of the season, he was going to retire at the end of this year. So he had a very good career leading that program the right way. You really was instrumental in kind of helping the whole university and its athletics department transition to the PSAC from the GLIAC, which was just a overwhelmingly positive move for them. He won a PSAC championship in 2010, got him the playoffs a couple times. Throughout his seasons there, managed to beat every one of the PSAC power heavy teams at least once or twice. So happy for him. He's calling it a career, and he's done well there. So congrats, coach, and happy retirement.
Awesome. All right. And one other thing I wrote down, and I want to remind you, we haven't made it official yet, but Matt, I think, thought it would be a great idea to have a bracket challenge. So we've all picked the first rounds, but we're going to have a bracket challenge where people can sign up. I don't know the format yet, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that existed. We'll remind everybody again at the end of the show. But we'll figure out a prize and have a real winner. I think that would be lots of fun. And I've never done it before, so I can't give you any solid details, but for those who have, you guys will help me, and we'll get it all figured out. So let's do that. All right, guys. We don't pick the teams. We don't make the rules, but somehow we get to field the complaints. So let's go ahead and go into the comments. And there are a ton of them. I don't know if they're questions or comments or what, but there are a boatload of them. And,
and while Brandon kind of looks through those comments to get a question, I want to just thank everybody for their interaction during the show on Facebook and YouTube for all the questions. I know I look at them during the show, and if there's anything that kind of pops up right away, I try to answer it a little bit when we're in the discussion because in the heat of the moment. So we appreciate the support, you guys. You guys want to like, share, all that good stuff to our pages and everything. We really appreciate it because it's a good time.
All right. So just a comment from our good buddy Inc.
That's a great stat. Love to see that.
It's really interesting. And there are some, and I'm probably one of them, that would be in favor of a format where all conference champions, or however you wanted to pick it, every conference got somebody in, and then you pick the rest of the field at large. I would be all for that.
Well, it would at least take away the controversy and the pain, and frankly, just the bitching about earned access, because nobody really understands it. Nobody really gets it. If the goal is to get every conference in, then just have automatic bids, or don't have the stupid earned access rule.
Well, they tried to. They tried to have it where every conference had automatic bids. The NCAA Division II did not have enough teams that sponsored football. 75% of the institutions in the NCAA have to sponsor a sport for automatic qualifiers to exist. They would not grant an exception.
How many is it for D2?
That is my point. Grant the stupid exception. We know that football is different from everything else.
Yes. Great, Chuck. I 100% agree. All right. So, Joe.
Also, shout out to Ink Block for all the stuff he does for regional rankings and stuff like that. Just trying to pick this side and everything. He does a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm.
Makes us all look a lot smarter here on the show as well.
I don't think it makes us look smarter. We just quote him.
Exactly. I mean, we just use this thing like, hey, according to Ink Block, and then we look really smart regurgitating what he gives us in a little bit. It makes us look intelligent.
I mean, it just gives you that extra little bit. I know Ink Block. Yeah, he said this.
All right. So Joe says, Valdosta State had a top strength of schedule, but getting handily beat does bring up the issue if number one seed is deserved. Maybe by the metrics, but the smell test isn't working for me. It wasn't even a one-score loss. Again, we don't set up the rules, and I think everybody here would agree with me. Well, maybe you wouldn't. And if you don't, feel free to disagree. But if we picked them simply by using the smell test, a lot of things would be different all over the country.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way.
I'd still have Valdosta higher on the smell test.
Do you? Okay.
Hmm?
I'd probably have West Florida higher if it was on the smell test.
Yeah. I mean, that's a careful what you wish for type thing there.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, well, Joe's a Grand Valley fan, so it's not an issue.
No, I just meant in general.
They'd be much lower than they'd be much lower.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
So, all right. So
we can't even trigger K Ferg on that one. What's going on?
Yeah, so, does anybody remember the answer to this question?
I do remember Findlay beat Shepherd in the playoffs, not in the distant past, but the thing is that with the COVID year in there, 18 and 19 feel like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. All right.
Well, how about Calvin, the criteria in the 2009 playoffs?
No, I know those are easy. We can go back to those anytime. They need to expand this to 32 teams. I would prefer, and this will anger you, Calvin, I'd actually prefer to go back to 24. I think I have
that's a stupid take, but keep going.
Yes, thank you. Calvin, Matt agrees with you. I think this year is not an example of this, but it theoretically could have been, where 1 and 2 are so close most of the time that both of them deserve a first round bye. And I just think it's such a huge advantage of 1 over 2 when it's close. That's
that make it 32.
No, then nobody gets a bye, and I like the bye. I think it's fun. Yeah. 32 seems too large to me. But whatever. All right.
It's still much smaller in terms of representation percentage versus FCS on other levels.
Absolutely. So Mars Hill should be in. Why are
there's
they
not
out,
there's not a good argument for that.
No.
There just isn't.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Denied.
I wanted it to happen for them, but they're just.
I kind of like the way we're going here. This is nice.
There just isn't a good argument for it.
Okay. Why should math be involved in teams with the same record and one team beat the other and they play in the same conference? Well, we didn't make the rules. It would seem head-to-head is one of the primary criteria.
Yeah,
and
I think
so.
I think there's
who's this in regards to.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just in general, but I think there's an effort to try to put some metrics behind it, because if you don't do any math, you don't do any metrics, then you kind of end up in the scenario that the FBS college football playoff has right now, where it's just people that get together and decide who the 4 best teams are, or they're actually ranking top 20 or top 25, but we have no idea how they're actually doing it. They're just saying, this is what we think. So I
Right.
think it just kind of at least gives the committee a little bit of subjectivity, but it really puts a lot of math behind it. And they also there's an effort to be consistent across all the playoffs for all sports. They're trying to use some consistency in how they look at teams and how they evaluate teams. So
I don't necessarily agree with that. You yourself said 5 minutes ago that football's different.
I agree.
I'm not saying you do agree with it, but I'm just saying.
Right, but that's one of the things that they try to do is be consistent across the sports.
Okay,
Chuck, don't fall into the trap there.
Calvin, we already talked about this.
Hey,
Hopefully you were paying attention to our answers. Go ahead, Devin.
With math, analytics, and people get mad about this stuff. All it is just more information to use to be more informed on your decision later on. If you use the math incorrectly or manipulate it to your own standards, that's a different thing. But all math is information to use for this stuff. So don't blame the math if you don't like the math. Kind of is my thing with some of these arguments with that going forward. Just a general football topic with analytics.
Yeah, I agree. It's easier to explain the decision making when you have the math, the numbers.
Yeah, just information. That's all it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, they had the math this year in Super Region 3, and they didn't use it. That was my problem.
They used the math incorrectly, in my opinion. So,
well, the criteria, however you want to look at it. So,
well, they certainly didn't use the math for the mileage.
Right. We talked about this, didn't we? About how Cal. Did we explain that they were eliminated because of earned access, not because of anything that they really did?
And there are a couple of other questions in here, and I certainly appreciate the one of the players that from another PSAC school who asked the similar question. But really, this came down to head and strength of schedule, and Cal's strength of schedule was not very good, just because of kind of what Chuck mentioned before about the PSAC and how they drew their crossover games were not good games, and neither was the team they played out of conference. So that's why Cal didn't get in.
Right.
It's the same argument we had with Fayetteville State, right? Fayetteville State had a really bad draw, because I know that was another issue. They were like 8-2. They didn't even get consideration beyond 10. Because the strength of schedule was just so poor.
Right.
So, yeah. Calvin, you always ask great questions. So which games are you guys most excited to see?
Good. That is a good question.
Slippery Rock, Notre Dame, and Angelo and Minnesota Duluth.
Okay.
Albany State.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. Definitely within my own region, my own expertise. Lenore Ryan at Bowie State, I think, is a really exciting game. I'm pumped for that, and I'm not just trolling Matt here. Bemidji and Augustana. I think that's going to be a really fun game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Washburn. Yep, I'm going to go with Washburn Harding, just because I'm not sure how those teams out of silo schedule, how they're going to match up with each other. And the same can say with Nebraska Kearney going to Western Colorado, just how the second and third best teams in the MIAA, how they fare leaving the conference and how they kind of match up to other teams, first or second best teams in their conference. I'm just kind of curious how that kind of plays out.
I'm always interested to see how the option attacks do this time of year, because a lot of times it's teams who haven't seen them and things like that. So I think those are always matchups I find more visually interesting to watch.
Agreed.
All right. Joe had a question I think the part I want to take about this is in the PSAC, the SOS isn't something a team can control. So how can we reward or punish a team based on SOS? I don't think it's a reward or a punishment. It's just an acknowledgement of who had a tougher schedule.
Right. Yeah, just facts.
Yeah.
I think the problem I have with that question is that the PSAC decided how they want the schedule too.
Yeah, it's a PSAC thing.
Yeah, they decided to only have one out of conference a game. So, I mean, they chose their destiny.
Yeah.
They know the criteria coming in and everything else. So everybody does. So
I'm going to bring this one up only because Matt's a friend. I got a bone to pick with the question or with the concept. Hence why GVSU got dropped to 4 in the region. All right. No team gets dropped or raised in the last week. It's simply a reevaluation of everything that's happened. And it's maybe it's semantics, but it's frustrating to me to hear that said all the time. Well, they dropped us, they took us up. No, it's just an evaluation. Today or this week, 10% was added to the data. 10% more was known than was a week before. And it's going to change likely the way things are evaluated.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, last week in the last regional rankings, Northwest had one less win versus a ranked opponent in one less win above a 500 team, with
Actually,
Michigan
two.
Western right at 500. So it just one extra.
Evan, it was actually 2.
Well, who's the other one?
They were 2-1.
Yeah.
Last
So who's the
week,
other
but
team
they're
that went
4-1.
above? Oh, because they played
Missouri
Emporia
Western.
too. So yeah,
Right.
so they played Emporia, who was above 500, in Missouri Western. So it went up 2 spots for that, and they were already above them in performance indicator and win-loss percentage. We added another third criteria where they were able to be above Grand Valley in that situation. So, and I think the bonus part was the second round with the travel kind of added in there as well as kind of a bonus piece to that criteria. So just it all kind of worked out that way.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're saying that the math wasn't mathing.
Yeah, the math was. If you don't like the math, I mean the math was wrong. It's just the way it is with the reevaluation each week.
A good friend of mine always tells me on the board that he was told there would be no math, so he objects to it all the time. 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever, Central Time. Matt Witwicky sends me a private message and says, I can't figure out why they have 2 first-round flights. And our good buddy Inkblot, who's probably, like I said, the best at this, agrees with you, Matt.
If he sent that to you, then why did I have to talk to him?
Well, okay.
But again, that goes back to
We thought you were leaving.
that goes back to the consistency issue I was talking about, though, because the having only one flight would have been Central Washington going to Angelo State to only have one flight. So, and they were not very consistent across the committees when they're deciding, these rematches in the first round. So that's why I think we saw the 2-flight deal in this scenario.
You think so, to avoid that?
Yeah, it's only.
But then Parabogi and Bemidji.
Yeah, something has to give, right? In this case, but Central Washington could have gone to a lot of different places since they have to fly. So you can do two flights, right? And probably still avoided the in-conference issue because they're kind of flexible, can go anywhere as a team that is unseeded.
Yeah, if they play each other during the season and they're non-cons, that's one thing. If you're already in conference, I kind of view that a little bit different, than you just happen to be scheduled that year. But I get where you're going. I understand.
Well, the GNAC and the Lone Star are basically together now. They're
true. The scheduling agreement.
So, yeah.
All right, Inc. Northwest hire SOS is a bit of mirage. It would be exactly the same if they played Lincoln, and I agree. But the fact is they didn't play Lincoln.
Right.
Just like the fact is that Grand Valley's wins would have been different if they had played Edinburgh.
Their SOS would have been lower though. They played Edinburgh.
We have to.
But you got to deal with whatever on the page.
Exactly, because all right, we all know, we all assume we know, but who knows if
it's good
Lincoln
to see this isn't
beat
getting you
Northwest.
Triggered, is it?
I know.
Not triggering you.
No, I had this discussion with another friend of mine earlier and said we have to deal with what's real, not with what was to be.
And my one counter argument to that would be it is the MIAA, so everyone plays each other only. So how can you really calculate stick a schedule with that? Anyways, it's gonna be 500. I get what you're saying. You can't use a make believe game, but there's still you can't tell who's actually good or not outside of conference because no one's played that. So strength of schedule should still be 500. Just looking at everything,
it's not really strength of schedule. It's just opponent's winning percentage, which is a different concept than true strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
One is mathematical. One takes it deeper and understands, how good somebody is. What you're saying is correct. You really don't know the strength of schedule, but the criteria is opponent's winning percentage. Which
is why it's mirage.
We conflate and switch those back and forth too often.
Yeah.
Champ, the regional champion for the last 3 years was from what conference? That would
I'm guessing
be
you're talking about Super Region 3 with the the GLIAC. I'm guessing
he's talking about the Ferris State Conference.
Yeah, GLIAC. And who cares? Ferris had a lot
Those
of
are-
really good teams.
Those are fairly
regional-
random question.
The regional champion. I mean, you have regional champions from all 4 regions.
The Gulf
we
South's
don't-
been in the national championship the last 3 years.
Well,
Oh,
the Ferris
Are we
is
doing
one.
trivia
4
here
years.
late? Is that what this is? This trivia?
No,
late?
that was my shot to get that was my
Oh.
chance to get a shot at a friend.
Oh, okay.
A Grand Valley fan who's
I thought we were
trying to
doing
go back-
trivia. I thought I was going to have to go get my paper so I could write on it. I think. But okay.
Only kickers and punters.
Hey,
All right.
that
Have
again.
your market ready at all times.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've addressed this maybe.
Yep.
Okay.
We don't like it.
Okay. Joe, I could be honest with you. I can't remember the last time Grand Valley got a break in the seedings. That's why I made the joke on the message board about Grand Valley traveling to Northwest, or something like that, but only under 2007 rules. You know, it was all right.
Well, they do have a team coming to visit them on their 3rd string quarterback, but
That helps. I mean, it's I think a pretty favorable first round matchup. The second round is tough,
That is
but
true. Okay. Goodness gracious, a lot of questions. I wish Chuck were here. Do we know if Frostburg is eligible next year?
I think it's the year after. I think it's 2023. I think he said that before, which stinks because they're really good. Stay frosty.
Yes, right. So I mean, what a great team to join us. Join Division II. Okay. Don't know. Geez.
All right, and while Brandon's looking for that, Matt, I wanted to tell you real quick, cover an 8-man game on Saturday, and we had a kicker hit a 40-yard field goal in the half in an 8-man game. He booted that thing, too.
nice. We have 7 classes of football, which is probably about 4 or 5 too many up here in South Dakota. And they, 3 of the classes are 11-man, and the other 4 are 9-man.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we see a lot of that happening here. Yeah.
Also,
Here's an
Inkblot said
interesting question.
2022 for Frostburg. Inkblot said 2022, so next year.
Very good. Very good.
Did Armo ask a question earlier? I saw that it was long enough it had chapters, but I hadn't gotten a chance to read through it.
All right. Blake would like to know.
And by the way, I will be getting messages from my guy Armo because I've suddenly taken a heel turn by speaking well of Northwest and not of Harding. So right now he is unhappy and raging right now.
This is almost gonna get you.
I know. A matter of fact, yes, he might be typing as we speak. We love you, Armo. But okay, keep on going.
All right. So in each region, who has the best chance to upset the number 1 seed?
Ooh, I like that question.
I agree.
Great question.
Hold on, let me get the answers. You guys commiserate.
I think Grand Valley has a good chance in a rematch with Ferris. I mean, the way they played him the first time, I know we talked about towards the end of the half what happened there with the fumble, non-fumble kind of deal and how much it maybe assisted Ferris State in that win. I think Grand Valley and just those 2 teams always play kind of tough each and every year. I think it's a good chance Grand Valley could possibly upset Ferris in the second round.
Okay, boss, I came up with the answer. The answer can be found in Super Region 4 when the Augie plays against Mines, because that may be a favorable matchup. Augie would need to beat Bemidji, but that would be an interesting football game.
Yeah, and Super Region 2, I think we kind of already seen what happened when West Florida and Valdosta get together. So I mean,
It's West Georgia.
West Florida. No, West Florida is the answer here.
Okay. I was thinking second round match. I was thinking second round.
Doesn't West Florida have to get past Bowie first?
Yeah, that's true. But
Okay,
I mean,
I just want to make sure you thought all this out there for your.
If it happens, if.
Okay.
Oh, I was thinking more just like first game they play the 1 seed loses, because I think if upset is a lot bigger than just 2 versus 1. It'd be like a 1 versus a 4 or 5. I think it's a true kind of upset there in the regional, in my opinion, kind of deal.
All right, guys. I believe that is all the questions. I'm down at the bottom, and that's what we're gonna end with. So, guys, I've had a wonderful time talking about this tonight. There's a little less hostility than I thought there would be in the comments, so I was happy to see that. Appreciate all you guys' help. You guys carried a big load today, and I really appreciate that. We'll continue to have a show every week until the season's over. Be sure to check the website because we will have a bracket challenge, and once we get that set up, we'll figure out exactly how we're going to do that. So until then, again, like and subscribe, follow us on social media. You can see it in the description of, especially on YouTube. I'm not sure of the others. I think on our Facebook page you can see that as well. And then if you're watching us on Twitter, you should already be following us. If not, hit the button and tell your friends about us. So again, as we do every week, we are going to end by showing some people who have financially supported the site. We appreciate the support. We couldn't do what we do without you. And we look forward to a great first round of the playoffs. And we will see you next weekend. Thank you very much.